Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3. So excited to be live with you again on day 3. Again, if you are just joining us, this is 30 days of lives with me. And every single day, we're going to go live talking about something that truly is of importance. I mean, there's so many conversations that come at us all day long. And are they really that important? Or is it just people taking up airtime because it's all they have to talk about? Just saying. I've heard a lot of those kinds of conversations, and I have come to be like, okay, and next, I want something else. And so I have been, for a little bit of background, if somebody's just joining, I have been in the speaking space for a number of years. I was a TV news anchor and reporter. I was leading in network marketing and digital marketing, had my own coaching business, and now a co-founder of an amazing organization called Kingdom Alliance, which is the #1 faith-based digital community powered by network marketing. And so it's a place where people can come learn, grow personally, professionally from other kingdom minded experts, and they can earn an income by sharing it. So there are, with all of that short little bio history, there's a lot of topics that I can talk on just from what I've grown in over the years and just things that I have spoken, whether it's on stage, in a variety of trainings, you name it. And yesterday on day 2, we were talking about stewardship and really diving into the principles of stewardship. There are 10 principles, I believe, in stewardship. We went over 5. Now, let's recap very briefly before we go into the last 5 today. The first 5 principles of stewardship out of the 10 that I'm going to share. Yesterday on day 2, we talked about ownership, responsibility, accountability, reward, and humility. We dove in deep on all of those. Now, those are only 5 of the 10 principles. Today, we are going to dive into the last 5 of the 10. And those are diligence, multiplication, planning, sacrifice, and generosity. So we're going to dive in on those today. So if you are joining us and you saw day 2, type below, what was one of the principles that stood out to you the most from day 2? If you were watching on day 2, I'd love to be able to hear that. In this conversation as well, I would love it to be like back and forth. It's like a game of tennis. I hit the ball, you hit it back. Like I would love to see for whoever is watching, wherever you're watching, whether it's on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, what questions do you have? What are you getting from this? I love this to be interactive as well. So the rest of the principles for stewardship: diligence, multiplication, planning, sacrifice, and generosity. Those are the 5 that we're going to dive into today. Now, I touched base on this a little bit in day 2. Stewardship is a lot of things. Now, you might not even be super familiar with the word. If you are, typically people use the word stewardship for when it comes to finances and how you're stewarding your wealth, finances, things like that. But we get to steward a lot of things. And learning the principles of stewardship, I feel, has been a huge game changer in my life because we get to steward our minds, our bodies, our relationships, our finances, our purpose, so many different things. But when we understand principles of something, then it takes that knowledge that kind of sits up here at the surface level, and now we can dig down deep and have more context. In a world where people love being able to see content of 15, 30, 60 seconds, we lose a lot of context. So therefore, we don't have enough of a root system in something to really anchor us in why do we believe what we believe? Why is this important? Why should I be paying attention to this? We always love to ask the why. Well, if you get more context, you'll understand the why better. Not to say you'll understand it completely, but you'll understand it better. So digging in on the rest of these 5 principles, right? So we're going to start with diligence. Anybody else love that word? When it comes to diligence, it is something that over the last year, I would say something that is really just a powerful word that I don't feel a lot of people understand the definition of it. Long story short. So with that being said, I'm going to give you the definition. Diligence, careful and persistent work or effort. Diligence, the definition is careful and persistent work of effort. So diligence is something that we are, I would say a lot of us maybe aren't necessarily super familiar with, or we just don't want to do. Like we all love consistency from other people. We all love the persistency of other people and following that and see what it gets us. But what about ourselves? What about ourselves? What about us? What are we doing? What are we being diligent in so we can steward what has been given to us, right? So diligence is huge. Being persistent, being carefully just focused in on something to do it, to make it happen. So whether that is a word that the Lord gave you, whether that is a commitment you want to give to yourself, whatever that may be, being diligent in it is going to be key. Now, diligence can lead to multiplication. Now, when anybody hears the word multiplication, they're like, yes, I want multiplication. Multiply all the things like 10x, 5x, 100x, the things, right? Like we all want the multiplication. But you can't get the multiplication if you don't have the diligence. It's like the analogy of a garden, right? You plant the seeds, you water the seeds, sunlight needs to hit the seeds. And then over time, when you nurture and care for those seeds, the harvest will come. Now, between when you plant the seeds and the harvest, there are weeds you have to get out of the garden. There's rocks you have to get out of the garden. There may be some unexpected harsh weather that damages a little bit of the seeds or makes it a little bit hard to grow. Like you have to be diligent in a garden, tend to those plants and those seeds in order for the harvest, AKA the multiplication, to come. Our lives are no different. We get to tend to the seeds that have been planted in our lives. We get to water. It needs sunlight. It needs different things in order for those seeds to grow. It's not a plant and then boom, it happens. There is time. There is a process. There are unexpected struggles, unexpected things that could come about. And how we respond to those is key, is absolutely key, because things are going to come. That is a given. Struggles and hardships are going to come. And you may be experiencing some of that right now where you're like, oh, I just want the multiplication. Well, the character building, the struggles, the hard things, the scars you may endure during the process, like all of that is going to be worth it when that multiplication comes. We can't just expect things to multiply overnight. And even people saying like, oh, it must be nice. It looks like, you came up overnight. You never know the seeds, how many seeds they've planted, how many scars they have, what kind of diligence it took and focus it took in order for them to see that multiplication. Now let's go into the third one, planning. Do you prioritize planning? Do you have a plan? Do you have a plan going into today? Do you have a plan of what you're going to do today? Not just letting today happen to you, but you taking the reins of like, look, I'm going to create a plan. And one thing that I've learned along the way, being flexible with it. Flexibility is something that has taken me a long time to learn. I was very much like, here's my plan. Here's what I'm going to do. And if anything impedes on that, then like, you better get out of my way. Rather than being like water and flowing, just flowing, right? Did you know? Take a stream, for example. If you put jagged rocks in the midst of a stream or even a river, over time, the jagged, sharp edges smooth because the consistency of the water hitting that rock is going to smooth out those edges. Now, the rock just got planted in that water and it was just like, I'm a rock. I'm not changing, right? Like that is a hard material. But consistently over time, as water is hitting that rock, it's going to smooth over time and it's going to bend. It's going to mold in a different way than it probably wasn't expecting. Many of us are like the rock. Many of us have been planted in water and we're trying to fight against the water when really the water is just showing us how to flow. There are so many different ways that you can do something. So be flexible in your plan and your approach, but you need to plan. For example, another example for you. A lot of people don't have a plan for their week, don't have a plan for their day. They just kind of, oh, whatever happens, happens. And if you live a happenstance life of whatever just comes your way, you're always going to be reactive versus proactive. So one of the things that I prioritize big time is my morning time, hands down. So typically in a week, Monday through Thursday, I get up at 2:00 in the morning. I have my quiet time with the Lord. After my quiet time, I go to the gym at about 4. From 4 to 5, I work out. Then I come home, I get ready, I eat a good breakfast, I get my mind right, I'm focused. And I typically don't start my day till about like between like 7 and 8, depending on what's needed. So I have a 4 to 5 window, like time block In the beginning of my day, yes, I said I get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Most people are like, that's nuts. Well, what I found out for me is I need a larger window to have me time, because if I don't, then somebody's going to get not the best version of me. That's what I have come to discover. Now, you may not need that big of a window. You might just need like an hour or two. But so many people I see rush into their day and they're starting their day with a pot of coffee, legit acid in their stomach, nothing nutritious, starting off their day in stress. Hurry up, I got to get going because I want to prioritize a little bit more sleep rather than getting up and getting my day started effectively. Now, don't get me wrong. When I get up early, there's times where I'm exhausted. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. But I know if I don't, I'm not going to be my best self. And I'd rather be a little bit more physically tired, but mentally ready and stimulated and focused, ready to go. And that takes planning. That took a lot of planning over the years of like, what time do I need to get up in order for me to give me what I need before I go into my day? That's me stewarding my mind, my spirit, my body, just my peace and my space, my health, my purpose, my job, how I get to serve people, my marriage. Yes, all of that comes into play when I wake up as early as I do because I get to retrain and refocus. Now, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I don't know if anybody's ever experienced this. Type 3 a.m. in the chat if this is something that you've experienced. Have you ever experienced between midnight, 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever, like a night terror in the middle of the night? Or something that startled you, or something that just was like off, right? Anybody between like midnight, 6 a.m., midnight, 3 a.m., type 3 a.m. in the chat, or whatever time you've experienced something, let me know. One of the reasons I get up as early as I do is I have a calling on my life to pray and intercede at the hour that I get up. And I'm not saying this to scare anybody. I'm just saying this because this is a fact. Most people get some kind of a night terror at some point in their life between midnight and 3 a.m. and sometimes between 3 and 6. And why is that? Those are very demonic hours. Very demonic hours. A lot of dark things happen in the middle of the night. A lot of dark things happen in the middle of the night. And so I have been told, the Holy Spirit has just showed me that I get to be up at those hours and pray and intercede to cover people, to cover the region, to cover the state of California, to just pray. Now, not everybody wants to be up at those hours. I get it. And there's times I don't want to either, but I feel the heaviness. Do you ever feel when you wake up that you're just like instantly you're stressed, you're fearful? There's a lot of just things that are smacking you of like, oh, I'm not doing enough. I got to do this. I got to do that. I need this. I need that. You instantly almost go into panic mode. That's because you're at your weakest point when you're sleeping and right when you get up. Like you are vulnerable. You're vulnerable. So knowing those things, if you get woken up in the middle of the night, best thing you can do is pray. Best thing you can do is pray. Lord, I give this to you. I hand this over. I give this to you. What the enemy's using for evil, you will use for good. No weapon formed against me will prosper. I come against the darkness that's trying to come against me. It has no power in Jesus' name. And have confidence in that and go to bed. Go back to bed. And if it keeps persisting, just stay up and pray. Stay up and pray. And when you get up in the morning, if those thoughts instantly come about, take 3 deep breaths to bring oxygen into your body, to refocus your mind and start being like, no, that is not truth. Lord, show me what I need to do today and let's do it. All of this that I'm sharing with you takes planning, takes diligence. And over a period of time, you will see multiplication happen. Well, there will be so many seeds planted from even just prayer that you won't even know what to do. The harvest will be so abundant, you won't even know what to do. And I personally have experienced that, and it is a beautiful gift. Well, let's go into the fourth, actually, technically the ninth principle before we get to the last one, sacrifice. Everything in which I've told you right now, me getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning, interceding and praying in the middle of the night when most are sleeping. The only people I see on the road are quite literally criminals or people that are coming home from the bars, or, you know, there's some obviously early overnight workers, but usually it's mischief. Usually it's mischief. And honestly, like there are times where I found different parking lots. So I'll park my car and have my quiet time in. Yes, I don't do it in my house. I actually do it in my car because it's a lot more just focused and there's no distractions. Well, there has been a time or two where I've seen a crime literally in progress and I had to like get down. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. Like there's been some questionable times. Those are the only people that are usually up at that hour, except me or anybody else that I still have yet to meet that gets up at that hour that prays and intercedes. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is to get up at that hour, to do those things, to put the needs of others even before mine, because God already knows mine. It takes sacrifice. One of the principles of stewardship is sacrifice. What am I willing to sacrifice? A little bit of sleep, my own desires, my own wants. God knows my heart, my wants, and desires. And we talk about those things. Don't get me wrong. I don't just push it down and become a martyr. I say, Lord, how do you want to use me today? Speak to me today. How can I steward what you've given me? And part of my mantle and part of what he's given me is the sacrifices that I make are for thousands of people literally around the world because of the vision that he's given us here at Kingdom Alliance and how we are building this ark where people can come in, they can be encouraged, empowered, and equipped and be able to have just the mobilization. We can mobilize Christians all around the world. We can create more Christian millionaires all around the world. Imagine if we saw more people who had so much passion and love for Jesus have abundance of wealth, became outward with it, had more of it rather than, oh, I don't really, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if that's what he's wanting. Like, he's not wanting us to be poor. That's a whole nother tangent. And I don't even want to go on that today because we don't have enough time. But we will over the next 30 days. Trust me. But in stewardship, it takes sacrifice. There's going to be things you don't want to do. Your flesh is like, I don't want to do that. But we get to do that. We get to make better decisions. How we spend our time. How we put what we put into our bodies. The words that we say. Ooh, the words that we say are so powerful. Yes, Humberto. I love that I see you on here. Now, this is a man to follow, Humberto Revanato. He is one of my favorite pastors right out of San Antonio, Texas. That guy. Go follow that guy. He knows all about stewardship, sacrifice, all the things. And yes, we are going to break the spirit of poverty. So many people I know, they say, I want to, I wish I can, I'm going to pray for it. Well, what's stopping you of doing it? Are you stewarding what God has put into my hands? Or what God is putting into your hands, I should say. So again, the principles of stewardship, I believe, are so powerful so you can learn what am I stewarding or not stewarding in my life. Now, the last principle here that we're going to talk about out of all 10, let me rename the first 9 and then we're going to go to the last one. So in day 2, we talked about ownership, responsibility, accountability, reward, and humility. Today, we talked about diligence, multiplication, planning, and sacrifice. And the last one, number 10, is generosity. Generosity is contagious. I've had people in my life out of the blue being like, I just want to give this to you. Not that I needed it or not that they know that I needed it, but I really did. They're like, I just want to gift this to you. So often we're waiting for things to happen in our life before we become generous. We're waiting to have control over things when God just wants our generosity. Here's a topic that might ruffle some feathers. Tithing. Tithing. A lot of people are like, I don't really know where the church is going to spend that. Therefore, I don't know if I want to give that. That is not up to us. What is up to us is we make what we make. God's giving us the 90 and only asking for 10%. That's it. Now, where we give it to in the house, the church that we are being fed at, in that house, whatever they do with the 10%, that is on them. That is not on you. But so many of us have that controlling nature of like, I don't really trust where this is going. Or maybe you've heard of a bad example. Maybe you've heard of churches that have abused the flock and have taken so much. Well, people fail. People are people and they are flawed. But it doesn't mean every church out there is flawed. Now, if you don't feel like your church does well with money, go have that conversation with the pastor. Allow them to pour into you. But don't stop the generosity, blessing that can come into your life and what it can do for other people just because you don't have control over it. I'm going to say that one more time. Don't stop the generosity, blessings that can come into your life and what it can do for other people because you don't have control over it. There's so many people that are just like, I remember the first big tithing month we ever had. It was like my first big month as a coach and a consultant, and it was thousands and thousands of dollars. I basically tithed in one time what I had done over the course maybe of like half a year to three-quarters of a year. And in my mind, I'm like, this is a lot of money. But you know what I said? I'm like, I don't even care if my pastor takes this and goes on a vacation. I don't care. That is up to him. If he needs that to pour into him because of how he's stewarding his flock, so be it. And I hope that sets somebody free because, again, it is not up to us on how they spend that money, but it is up to us to follow what God has told us. And he's only asking for 10%. He's only asking for 10%. So I know generosity and tithing, it's not quite exactly the same thing, but I wanted to start there because a lot of us in the body are not given anything. Like we aren't. We're being like greedy or we're being stingy. Now let's talk about the giving aspect, right? You got tithing, you got giving, you got just people that you can just pour into randomly. How many people do you see that are homeless? You're like, I don't want to give them money because I don't want them to go spend it on drugs. How do you know they're doing drugs? How do you know this person doesn't need it? Or maybe God's laid somebody on your heart to Venmo them $20, $50, $100 and you didn't know why, but you're like, no, why am I doing that? You're questioning the order. You're questioning obedience. God wants to use you as a vessel to be generous to other people. We get to steward what we've been given. And so many of us are just like, but is somebody going to do this for me? Let's be honest. Let's be honest. I've had times in my life, my husband and I, where people have randomly like Apple Cashed us, Venmo'd us, and we're just like, what is this for? Just because. And it's like, wow, okay, well, thank you. Like I'm not going to give back what somebody felt like the need to give. I remember a couple years ago, I did a blanket drive for Christmas and it just was like a random, hey, people are cold. Even here in Southern California during the wintertime, it does get cold. People are cold. Anybody want to donate to this blanket drive? The amount of generosity, like the amount of people Venmoing me just all over the world for this blanket drive was insane. Oh yes, I want to give. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like I just kept going back to what? It was like TJ Maxx or Ross. And I was just buying up all the blankets because we had a blanket drive at our church. And then I got to dump a massive pile of blankets off. And it felt so good. Because I was saying, you know what? I want to steward what I've been given, so I'm going to buy some blankets. But then I took it another step. God has given me influence because of probably a variety of different things. But I use that influence to go online, to share with my following and the people that follow me, hey, this is what I'm doing. If you would love to give, great. And dozens and dozens of people gave. I probably am going to do that again because it was so fun. It was a load of fun to be able to just collectively do that together. So I was stewarding my influence to steward more generosity. I didn't have to. It took time. It took resources. But at the end of the day, it was so worth it. Yes, Humberto said, generosity is a spirit we have to catch. Tithing is a revelation we give. I got to show this. This is so good. Tithing is a revelation. We give to the well we draw from. Come on. Come on. Is it a wonder why he's like one of my favorites? Like he's incredible. Go follow him. Amazing. So I hope that you have been able to get some good meat, some good context when it comes to the principles of stewardship. On day 2, today on day 3, again, I'm going to go over it one more time. Stewardship, the principles of stewardship deals with ownership, responsibility, accountability, reward, humility, diligence, multiplication, planning, and sacrifice, and generosity. Those are the 10. So I'd love to hear in the chat below, like what stood out to you the most? What did you learn? What was the takeaway? Many of us come onto these lives or that we watch content or we come across posts and then we're like, ooh, that was good. And then we're on to the next. I talked about this on day 2. We're on to the next best thing when really the thing that we just heard is most likely the thing that God really wants to do something in your life. Again, generosity. Gosh, we could just keep going in on that because a lot of people, especially right now, are like, "Oh, I need, I need, I need, I need." Well, I believe those that are followers of Christ, those that have called him, excuse me, their Lord and Savior. There are so many there are so many homeless, there's so many poor, there's so many widowed, there's so many people that we have been called to serve, and that is biblical to give. And how can we steward being a believer, being a Jesus follower, and show Jesus to more people? It's not necessarily do they deserve it or not. It's something we get to do. When we pick up our cross and we say, I'm going to follow you, Jesus, he leads the most amazing example. And you can go read the four gospels to really dig into what that looks like. He was tested. There were trials. There was a lot of unfair things that happened to him, but he kept pressing in, pressing in, pressing in. And a lot of what is shared in those gospels as well is he did a lot of retreating to be with the Father, to be in prayer, to be in solitude. Stewarding our time of solitude. That right there is a whole life in and of itself. And maybe we'll dive in more on that. And if there's something that is coming up for you of like, I would love to learn more of that and talk more about that, please type it in the comments below. Like, I would love to be able to dive in on other things. I would love to be able to do that. But again, back to stewarding, just being in the secret place, being in solitude, that is key. That is absolutely key. One of the things that have helped me be in solitude, and call me weird, whatever, but I picked up coloring, an adult coloring book. I have a big old marker set. I have these amazing adult coloring books that actually are scripturally based. So there's times where I'm in solitude where I'm just in prayer. And I'm just like, Lord, I'm here. What's next? And then there's times where I turn on soaking music, which is light prophetic instrumentals, and I'm coloring. And I have to slow down, stay within the lines, get creative. It's working the whole other side of my brain. And that's a hobby that I picked up that is so not what I would have ever even chosen like a year, 2, 5 years ago. But it's something where I know the Lord is calling me to be still, be in his presence. And in the time of just being in solitude or even coloring, there are things that I know are soaking in, things I'm not even aware of, but I can feel it. And then things I am aware of. So stewarding the solitude, just like Christ did when he walked this earth, is a huge, huge thing I know the body needs to understand. Because when we can do that, we get more clarity, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, grace for people. And then people can really see, like, there's something different about you. What is it? Just like my friend Humberto here. There's something different about that man. There is something, there's an anointing unlike anything else I've ever seen. But you can tell that man has spent time in the secret place and has done what God has called him to do. Like, it is very, very apparent. And I'm sure it came with, let's go over the principles again: ownership, responsibility, accountability, reward, humility, diligence, multiplication, planning, sacrifice, generosity, all those and more. So yes, the weight is there, but you're not meant to do it alone. So I hope that you've gotten something from this day 3. Excited to be on many more lives with you as we're doing 30 days of this every single day, 7 a.m. Pacific during the week, and Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific. So I will see you tomorrow for day 4. Bye, everybody.